Come, my child, sit here with me, Mother said. What is this place, Mother? The child asked. This is a memorial, the mother said. It's a place we created to remember a very special person. Is that what this statue is? Yes, my child. But why did they make the statue so small? It's not any bigger than I am, the child said. Because that was the actual size of the person who helped us, the mother said. He was from a race called humans. He was a full-grown male of their species and was barely over the waist of most of our people. How could such a small creature help us? He's so little. Yes, my child, our people once thought that way as well, the mother said. Sit here on the bench with me and I will tell you the story of when the human came to our world. The child sat and the mother talked. Long ago, before my grandmother's time, a bright ball of fire fell from the heavens. It tore a great strip of land when it crashed not too far from here. Many of our warriors went out to investigate. Even the bravest of them dared not approach the burning field too closely. Our people stood and watched as the fire burned hotter than any we had ever known. Until they heard a scream, that is. They knew something was trapped in there. But it wasn't a brave warrior who went to look at it. The youngest and newest of the elders strode bravely through the burning crops and searched out the source of the scream. When he emerged, the youngest elder was carrying a small burden, covered in ash and soot, with patches of fur burned away. The youngest elder carried the small creature into our village to see the wise woman. The elder gently placed him on the bed while the wise woman went to work. The human, for it was a human the youngest elder rescued, was injured and our people were worried for him. For you see, he was so small we thought he was someone's pet. To be given such ship that could sail the skies must have made him a very beloved pet indeed. We worried that should this creature die, its master would hold us responsible. But humans are tougher than they look. The human healed and regained his strength. Oh, not quickly and not all at once, but he did recover. He watched us as we went about our days. He listened as we spoke. He was attentive to this new world he found himself in. Many months after we found the human, when we still thought him a pet, the human said a word. We don't know what he said, for that has been lost to time, but we do know it so startled the wise woman who was still looking after him, that she ran screaming into the street. The elders and the warriors came to see the pet who could talk. They said the wise woman must have misheard that her old ears were playing tricks on her. But no, the elders and the warriors heard the human with their own ears when he told them thank you. There was much commotion and consternation at hearing this human talk. It took time before we realized he was not a pet of some great master but a person in his own right. This human learned our language. It took him time, but he was determined to communicate. When he finally knew enough of our words, we asked him how he came to our world. He told us he was an engineer. It was a word that did not exist for us until that moment. He explained that he built things. We asked what kind of things and he told us we did not have the words to understand it. He told us he was part of an experiment, another new word, and there had been an accident. Something happened that caused his ship to fall out of the sky, but that he was very grateful to us for saving him. He told us that as his ship was falling, he was certain he would die if not when he hit, then shortly after. He thanked us for his second chance at life. The elders asked him to help us bring more water to the village. The human looked over our pipes and runs that brought water from the spring to our village. He said he could not help better them as he was not that kind of engineer. We did not know there were kinds of engineers, so this surprised us. The elders asked him to help us build things for a better harvest. He looked over our threshers and our plows and our tools but said he could not help better them as he was not that kind of engineer. The elders came to him a third time and asked him to help us build our children stronger, to make them smarter and heal better and listen to their parents more attentively. The human sat and watched our children play. He watched our children laugh in the sunlight and sleep in the darkness. But he said he could not help better them as he was not that kind of engineer. The human had lived with us for nearly a full season when the Gentile attacked. The Gentile were a cruel and vicious tribe from the mountains. They would often raid the village near the harvest, for crops would not grow in the rocky soil and hilly terrain of their homeland. Their people thrived on conquest and battle. They knew nothing of growing things or tending to flocks. They knew only of preying upon our people. When the human heard that the Veta were coming soon, he asked several of the warriors to come with him to his wrecked ship. He had never visited, and only rarely spoken of his ships since he came to our world, so this surprised our people. Many of our bravest warriors went with the tiny human to his ship. He instructed them on what to do. Move this, carry that, bend or tear, lift or crush. The warriors listened, for the human had gained their trust by that time. On the 8th morning after the trip to the human ship, the Genta appeared at the edge of the foothills. A great raiding party marched toward our village. They knew our warriors would be no match against their strength, and so they employed no cunning. The early light glinted off their crude-edged weapons. Their piecemeal armor rattled as they approached. But the Genta were stunned when they saw no warriors awaiting them in the fields outside the village, as he always happened before. The only one there to greet them was a lone small human with a large metal sculpture near him. You see, the human bade our warriors and our elders, every person in the village, to stay inside and offer no resistance to the Genta. The chief of the Genta marched upon the tiny human. The chief was insulted that the village had left only one small animal and a statue to guard their village. The Genta were mighty warriors, and such a grave insult would not go unanswered. When the chief was a dozen paces from the human, the smaller creature shouted for the chief to hold. The chief was surprised the animal could talk and crashed to a halt in sheer surprise. The human looked up into the scarred and worn face of the chief. The human said that if the Genta turned and left now, he would let them live. He would show them mercy. While we did not understand the word engineer, the Genta did not understand the word mercy, even though it was in our tongue. As with many things, they decided it was an insult since they could not understand it. The chief raised up his mighty war club and let out a deafening battle cry. Our people watched from village, terrified of what the Genta would do now that their blood was up. The chief leaned forward to begin charging the human. The chief was twice as tall and 10 times as strong as the human. But the human was clever. 1,000 times more clever than the chief. As the chief took the first step towards the tiny human, the sculpture next to him let out a great and beastly roar. A spear of light, 100 times brighter than the sun, they say, leapt out towards the chief. There was nothing left of the brutal Genta chief. His footprints smoldered where he stood. The Genta war party was enraged. How dare this tiny pitiful excuse for a warrior destroy their beloved and mighty chief? How dare these low plains farmers stand up against the strong and deadly Genta? They charged at the human, with bloodlust in their hearts and screams on their tongues. The sculpture next to the human gave another mighty roar, and a great swath of Genta were no more. But still they charged. The human would point and the sculpture would swivel and lay waste to anything in that direction. Left, right, center. Again and again. The war party was thinning, and yet they had not so much as come within a spear length of the tiny human. Finally, with over half the war party destroyed by the weird metal sculpture, the survivors turned and ran. They realized they stood no chance against the human. Their weapons and strength were no match for a creature that stood no taller than the belts they fastened about themselves. Their shame was all-consuming, and they wept as they ran. Back to the hills, back to the mountains, into their caves and fortresses the Genta ran. But it was not enough. The human was not satisfied. We had told him how the Genta came every harvest. We had told him how they were prideful. We told him how they had never been defeated in battle. We told him how they had killed elders and warriors and mothers and wise women and children with no regard for the destruction they caused us. And the human took those messages to heart. He stepped to the metal sculpture, and his hands were busy across and inside it. For a time, our people heard banging in human language as the small creature busied himself. Finally, the human stepped back from the sculpture, his work completed. He left the sculpture and walked back to the village. The elders came out to meet him first, but he held his hand up to forestall them. He walked to them, meeting them at the edge of the village. The human turned to face the sculpture still in the field and spoke a single word in the human tongue. The greatest roar yet tore forth from the sculpture with a light that blinded those elders who did not turn their heads in time. The very air around the village seemed to scream as the light burst forth. When the light hit the mountains where the Gentile lived, it began to shake them. Boulders came loose and careened down the slopes. An avalanche of rock and dirt rolled downward as a wave crashes against the shore. Massive clouds of dust rose up and swallowed the mountains. The land beneath the feet of our people shook and rumbled. Even the bravest warriors feared for their lives and the lives of everyone in the village. Yet the humans stood quietly and watched it all without fear. And without pity. When it was done, when the sculpture had fallen quiet, when the land no longer shook, when the heat and the light died away, this engineer looked over what he had wrought. The mountains were laid low. Nothing stood but rubble and death. Everything within 5 days' walk was coated in dust and grime. The Gentile had been crushed and pulverized in their mountain caves and fortresses. Warriors and mothers, elders and children, all were dead and destroyed. Never more would the Gentile disturb our village or any other. Never again would our mothers cry out as a Gentile raider smashed in the heads of her children. Never again would the elders be forced to kneel to the Gentile chiefs. For the Gentile were no more. The very mountains themselves had been reduced to gravel, changing the landscape and even the weather around the village. All of this done by one small human who had crashed to our village from the sky. As he walked back into the village, the human paused by the elders and said, "That's the kind of engineer I am." And so we honor him yet. With this statue. By telling his story. By passing along what he taught us. That a person's strength is not always something one can see from the outside. That you cannot judge a person's worth until you know them. That any of us can make a difference, and all of us are important.